Most people think growing food year-round requires perfect weather, a greenhouse, or living somewhere warm. That's not how this works. The truth is, climate matters far less than the system you use. And the best systems aren't the ones that fight your weather, they're the ones that adapt to it. What you're about to learn isn't about controlling nature. It's about working with whatever nature gives you, whether that's cold winters, dry summers, or unpredictable rain. This is a food system that bends without breaking, and it starts with understanding one simple principle most gardeners completely miss. The principle is this: instead of growing everything in one season and hoping it works, you grow food in layers across time. You don't put all your effort into summer tomatoes and then wonder why you're buying groceries in November. You plant perennials that come back every year, cold-hardy crops that thrive when everything else dies, and quick-growing vegetables that fill the gaps. You create a rotation that never stops producing, no matter what the thermometer says. In my experience, most people fail not because their climate is too harsh, but because they try to grow the same 10 crops everyone else grows, at the same time, using methods designed for a completely different part of the world. Let's talk about what this system actually looks like in practice. You start with the foundation, and the foundation is perennial food plants. These are crops you plant once and harvest for years. Things like asparagus, rhubarb, perennial onions, Jerusalem artichokes, and berry bushes. These plants don't care if you have a late frost or an early freeze. They've adapted to survive, and they produce food without you replanting, reseeding, or babying them through every season. If you live somewhere cold, you choose cold-hardy perennials. If you live somewhere hot and dry, you choose drought-tolerant ones. The species changes, but the strategy stays the same. You're building a base layer of food that requires almost no maintenance and keeps producing year after year. Once your perennials are in the ground, you add the second layer, and that's your cold season crops. Most people think gardening stops when the temperature drops. That's one of the biggest mistakes in backyard food production. Some of the most nutrient-dense, reliable vegetables grow best in cool weather. Kale, collards, spinach, lettuce, carrots, beets, radishes, turnips, and brassicas, like broccoli and cabbage, all thrive in temperatures that would kill a tomato plant. In many climates, you can grow these straight through winter with nothing more than a layer of mulch or a simple cold frame. You're not heating anything. You're not using electricity. You're just protecting the plants from wind and hard freezes, and they keep growing slowly through the coldest months. I've harvested kale in January more times than I can count, and it tastes better after a frost than it ever does in summer. The third layer is your warm season annuals, and this is where most people spend all their energy. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, beans, cucumbers. These are the crops that need heat, and yes, they matter. But they're only one part of the system, not the whole thing. The key is to grow them intensively during their season, preserve the surplus, and then let them go when the weather turns. You don't try to extend tomatoes into November unless you have a serious greenhouse set up. You grow them hard from June through September, can or freeze what you don't eat fresh, and then shift your focus back to the cold-hardy crops. This is how you avoid the feast or famine cycle that makes most gardeners dependent on grocery stores for half the year. Now let's talk about soil, because this is where climate really tries to mess with you, and it's also where you take back control. Every climate has a soil challenge. Cold climates have short growing seasons and slow decomposition. Hot climates burn up organic matter and bake the ground into hardpan. Wet climates drown roots and leach nutrients. Dry climates turn soil into dust. The solution isn't to fix your climate, it's to build soil that handles whatever your climate throws at it. You do this with compost, mulch, and organic matter. Lots of it. Constantly. If your soil drains too fast, organic matter holds moisture. If it drains too slow, organic matter improves structure and creates air pockets. If it's too cold, organic matter feeds microbes that generate warmth. If it's too hot, mulch cools the surface and prevents evaporation. Here's the process. You start composting everything. Kitchen scraps, garden waste, leaves, grass clippings, shredded paper, anything organic. You build a simple compost pile or bin. Keep it moist, turn it occasionally, and let it break down. In 6 months to a year, you have finished compost. You spread that on your garden beds every season, and you cover it with mulch. The mulch can be straw, wood chips, shredded leaves, or even cardboard. The job of the mulch is to protect the compost, keep moisture in, keep weeds down, and slowly break down into more organic matter. This process works in every climate because you're not fighting the weather, you're building a soil system that buffers against it. I've seen people grow incredible food in clay, sand, rock, and hardpan. And the only thing they all had in common was that they fed their soil relentlessly. Water is the next piece. And again, climate tries to make this hard. Some places get too much rain, some get none for months. The backyard food system handles both. By using the soil you've built as a sponge, deep, rich, composted soil holds water far longer than depleted ground. In dry climates, that means you can water less frequently and still keep plants alive. In wet climates, that means water drains through instead of pooling and rotting roots. You also use mulch to regulate moisture. A thick layer of mulch in a dry climate can cut your watering in half. In a wet climate, it keeps the soil surface from crusting and helps water penetrate instead of running off. If you live somewhere with inconsistent rain, you collect it. A simple rain barrel attached to a downspout gives you free water for weeks. You don't need a complicated system. You just need to stop letting water run off your property and start keeping it in your soil. Now, let's talk about extending your season without spending a fortune. You don't need a heated greenhouse to grow food in winter. You need season extenders, and most of them cost almost nothing. A cold frame is just a box with a clear lid. You can build one from scrap wood and an old window in an afternoon. It sits over your garden bed, traps heat during the day, and protects plants at night. That alone can give you an extra month on both ends of your season. Row covers are even simpler, lightweight fabric that lets light and water through but holds in warmth and blocks frost. You drape it over hoops or lay it directly on plants, and it can protect crops down to the low 20s. In very cold climates, you can use both. Cold frame plus row cover plus mulch equals fresh greens all winter, no electricity required. If you live somewhere hot, your season extension works in reverse. You're trying to keep plants cool enough to survive summer, and you do that with shade cloth, deep mulch, and strategic planting. Shade cloth is mesh fabric that blocks a percentage of sunlight. You hang it over beds during the hottest part of the year, and suddenly you can grow lettuce and spinach in July. Deep mulch keeps soil temperatures down and prevents roots from cooking, and strategic planting means putting heat-sensitive crops in the shade of taller plants or planting them early or late to avoid the peak heat. You're not changing your climate, you're creating microclimates in your own yard. The last part of this system is preservation, because a backyard food system isn't just about growing, it's about storing what you grow, so you're not dependent on stores during the off-season. This doesn't mean you need a giant freezer or a basement full of canning equipment, though those help. It means you learn a few simple methods and use them consistently. Freezing is the easiest. Blanch your vegetables, bag them, freeze them. They last for months. Canning takes more effort but gives you shelf-stable food that doesn't require power. Fermentation is even simpler. Pack vegetables in salt, brine, wait a few weeks, and you have sauerkraut, kimchi, or pickles that last all winter and improve your gut health. Dehydrating works for herbs, tomatoes, peppers, and fruit. Root cellaring works for potatoes, carrots, beets, onions, garlic, and squash. You literally just store them in a cool, dark place and they last for months. When you combine all these layers, you end up with something that doesn't look like a traditional garden. It looks like a year-round food system that adjusts to whatever your climate does. You've got perennials producing in the background, cold-hardy greens growing through fall and winter, warm-season crops pumping out food in summer. Soil that holds moisture in droughts and drains in floods. Simple structures that extend your season without costing a fortune. And preservation methods that turn a summer harvest into winter meals. This isn't about perfection. It's about building something that keeps working even when the weather doesn't cooperate. The reason this system works in any climate is because it's not built around ideal conditions. It's built around resilience. You're not depending on one crop, one season, or one method. You're stacking strategies so that when one thing fails, 5 others keep going. That's what makes it reliable. And reliability is what turns a garden into a food system. Most people never get there because they're chasing the perfect tomato instead of building the whole picture. They plant in spring, harvest in summer, and buy groceries the rest of the year. Then they wonder why gardening doesn't actually reduce their food costs. If you want to feed your family from your backyard, you have to think like a system, not like a hobbyist. You have to plant for every season, build soil that works in your climate, extend your growing window with cheap or free materials, and preserve what you grow so it lasts. None of this is complicated. It's just different from what most people are taught. You're not trying to grow a prize-winning pumpkin. You're trying to grow food consistently, in whatever weather you've got, using methods that don't require a degree or a trust fund. That's the backyard food system that works in any climate. It works because it's designed to bend, adapt, and keep producing no matter what nature does. And once you build it, it keeps working, year after year, feeding you and your family with less effort, less cost, and a lot more confidence than you ever got from a grocery store.